I remember a couple of shows ago, I think you had started with Dark Matter. I remember talking about it,
Mm,
you talking about it, and it reminded me of that counterpart show that was on Amazon.
right.
And then, as we do, I'm having a conversation with Saloni, who again is back. Thank you for coming back. And you're like, I saw this show and it's amazing. And it's called Dark Matter. And you started describing the plot. I'm like, yo, Kevin watched that too. So then she was like, yo, like you need to watch this show. I'm like, okay, cool. So I watch it and I make jokes like, is there going to be armpit hair? Because there's this other show. What was that show called again?
Season 11.
Ocean's 11 or,
No,
or
Station 11.
Station 11, where there's like a bunch of hippies with armpit hair and shit. Anyway, I'm being ridiculous. I'm like, I like it better than Station 11 because Station 11 was cool. Like I survived, but I wasn't like, oh my God, right? But this show, even after the first episode, I was in and we finished it. So I figured, hey, you liked it a lot. We had straight up, I think, a 2, 3 hour conversation about it, just ourselves,
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, you need to come to the show. So you're here, Kevin's here, I'm here, and we're gonna talk about Dark Matter. And for those of you watching, sorry for my excitement, but for those of you watching, it's topical. Like I do think this is one of those shows that like there's gonna be a first wave and then there's gonna be a second wave of people who hear about it and watch it. So I think it's topical. And yeah, I'm gonna stop talking now and let us get into it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny that the one thing that's hilarious is that one of my favorite shows of all time is called Dark Matter. It is not this show. It's a different show. It's one of the shows that inspired me to write the script that I wrote. I it's one of my favorite shows that was canceled early on Sci-Fi. It sounds like that won't be a problem for Dark Matter.
No.
There's unlikely to do a second season. Um, on the other side of it, there's no reason that they couldn't, just because of the way the show is. They could make 1,000 seasons of this if they wanted to. But yeah, I don't think that's the goal. I think it's done. I think the book by Blake Crouch, This Is the Story. I read somewhere that he was actually on set the entire time, so his hand was directly in the show, which I think is pretty cool. Um, but I've already talked about it. Um, and since Saloni's the guest and she's got a pretty solid brain after we talked about not Station 11. What's the one she was on? What we've talked about was the OA.
Yes, the OA.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
right, right.
so so yeah, you watched it. Sounds like before Andrew did. You probably finished it before I did, to be honest. I watched it all this week after watching the first two episodes a while back. So you know, what did you think and what got you going with this one?
Oh, wow. Well, first off, I'll talk about how I came across it. I didn't know anything about it. I just happened to be scrolling through various networks. I was trying to look for another sci-fi show because I love sci-fi. And I happened to be on Apple TV, and it comes up as one of the recommendations. I didn't read what it was about. I had no idea. So I clicked on it, watched the first episode, loved it. First episode got me hooked. I didn't know what it was still about, other than like it was action packed. And then the second episode was fascinating. And then by the third episode, then it really starts to
Hmm.
move. It's really amazing direction. I loved it on so many different levels because I feel like it really resonates with what I have learned in some of the things that I've read, kind of related to metaphysics and sci-fi. And I feel like it's one of the best shows that covers the topic of multiverses and probable realities. And this concept that every choice we make branches into a new existence, into a new reality, into a new world. So there are versions of ourselves that are living these choices. Like if we're at a fork in a road and we're not sure which direction we want to go, in theory, there are versions of ourselves that are living choice A and choice B. and so forth and so forth. And so basically it's infinite for each and every one of us. So I love the fact that this show covered that. And there were some, just amazing topics that I thought also were pretty accurate, like regulating your emotions and what you believe does create your reality. And so there's moments where Amanda and Jason are in the box and they start realizing that we really have to be careful with what we think before we open the door to this next infinite world. And before we do that, we have to really regulate ourselves. And then, of course, the action and all the love story and the story of wanting to reconnect with his family, all of that just made it fascinating to me. So that's my general overall view of it. Overall, I love this show. And then we can, of course, unpack it more. But I'm curious to hear both of your perspectives.
Yeah, I'll say I agree on all those fronts. Like the multiverse thing, I think this is definitely like it's hard to say it's scientifically spot on because it's such a broad theory, but I mean this feels very authentic to like exactly what you said. If you're saying that every decision we make creates a different universe and there's infinite universes, then if there's a way to travel between them, you would be able to travel to whichever, whatever decision was made, as long as I think they said the one stipulation was had to be a universe that you existed in, at least at some point. If you couldn't go to you couldn't go to a universe where your parents basically didn't have you, right? Like if you weren't born, you couldn't go to a universe that's that different. But they could be wildly different, as we saw in the show. And I think it's safe to say here that we're probably going to spoil the show, because I think it's important when critiquing the show to talk about the ending. So I think we'll probably get there, and I think that's fine. I would say if you haven't already watched Dark Matter and you're going to, maybe pause this and give it a watch and then come back. I think I watched the whole thing in like 2 days. After I say that, but I had watched the first 2 episodes before that. But when I started watching again, I just knocked it out of the park. So it it's really good. I think the acting is stellar. I think the cast is excellent. Andrew, you and I kind of talked about how Joel Edgerton is maybe he'll probably never be the leading man. Like you're never going to go to a Joel Edgerton movie, right? But I've seen him in a few things, and he's really good. I think he plays a great everyman, and I think that really works to this story because you know even the bad Jason, or Jason 2, I guess is what they call him in the show. Um, he's not even necessarily bad. He's just a guy, and the character, while being brilliant, is still just a guy that is stuck in making bad decisions. Um, and the other thing about the show too is I think because there was a show and I forget what it was called, but it had David Tennant in it, and it was all about just like this series of just terrible choices that people made over the course of like 2 or 3 days. And it was just bad decision after bad decision, and it was just kind of a bad show because of it. And this one, at least the decisions, like his is obviously the worst, right? Like him deciding, hey, I'm going to go steal somebody else, well, my own life, right? Like that's his thinking, and switch him out, and he can live my life, and I'll live his life, and everybody be happy ever after. Um, but he still makes a bad choice, but then everybody deals with that. Um, and I think Jennifer Connelly was great. I read an interview with her, so I'll talk a little bit about that probably when we start talking about the end of the show. But she was really good in it. Yeah, I admittedly I've had a crush on Jennifer Connelly since was a Career Opportunities back in like 1990. So, but she's really talented. She's been really great. So, um, then you had the smaller cast. I never remember the guy's name, but Ryan also from Westworld.
Oh
Um,
yes, yeah, Jimmy Simpson.
Jimmy Simpson. There you go. And then their friend, I think was her name Bianca? Is that their friend's name?
Oh,
Oh,
Blair.
Blair,
No,
Blair, Blair.
Dawn. Oh
Yeah,
yes, but yeah, it's
no,
Blair. It's
Blair.
Blair. Blair.
She's from The Handmaid's Tale and a couple other things, and she's really amazing. Um,
Yes.
yeah, so it's a really great cast. So, what about you, Andrew? What's your
Yeah, you actually took a lot of what I was going to say, particularly about the cast. I think that was a huge, like everybody I think brought their A game. Joel, I think I have a little bit more faith actually, in Joel's career prospects because the thing is, even though he is an everyman and he's kind of like just kind of a regular dude, I now know who Joel Edgerton is. If I see him in anything else, I'm gonna remember him as Jason Dessen because I think he was able to play all those multiple Jasons in such a cool way. I mean, you went from like normal Jason to like kind of smarter bad Jason, and I will say he's bad for most of the show until he gets his ass kicked. Then you've got like your psychotic Jasons who are mentally unstable, who are like, Daniela, like just trying to like just grab, like no choice in the matter. Like, I'm just gonna make you my wife. Like, what? And then you've got like the nicer Jasons who are like, hey, like let them through, and they're all just like, we just came to say goodbye. And I just think that I bought all of them. Like I feel like I'm not sure every actor could pull that off, but he did. So I think that he has a bit of a chameleonic way about him, and he has a way of acting with just his face. So that to me, I want to give props to. Jennifer Connelly is having like, I don't know, a victory lap right now. I think that she's had like 3 careers. She's had like her kind of kid labyrinth career. Then she's had like her middle like adult career where she's just basically fine. And now she has her third career where she's like, I'm an older woman who's just like, got my shit going on. She was in Top Gun Maverick and now she's doing this. Props. Alice Braga, beautiful. Just gotta say. And I think that she played that sweet, like smart, like, psychologist woman just
hmm.
perfectly. And I think that Joel, I felt for him. I felt like he was super tempted, whatever. Great. The son, even though he was whiny, liked him. I did. Jimmy Simpson again is great. And I gotta give props to Saloni. She definitely called like one of the things that showed up in the end, like when she was like, "Oh, I think he's gonna go track down so and so." And then even Deo Okanii, I want to see him as Leighton because bad evil Leighton was a scary dude, and then Leighton in like Joel One's world is like this, kind of bored, rich, decadent dude, and they're just different. But then he played both parts, I think, very effectively too. I want to see him again. I want to see him in the MCU or something.
Well,
I
I
knew he was
really
doing very
liked, and I know we're not there yet, but I really liked the idea of him just hopping around and checking shit
yes,
out, like, and just loving it. Like, he didn't seem like he was out to mess anything up. He
no,
didn't look like he was, although he came in the one time he came back, like he was all kind of decked out, right? Like he had some fancy rings on and stuff. Like you'd tell he had done some stuff, but he didn't seem like he was a bad guy. He was just along for the ride, having a good old time.
yes, yes,
I love the fact that he shows up with his like backpack and like he's ready to travel. And he
Hmm.
is literally traveling to different worlds.
because he's
That's
just
very
bored. He's already conquered like the regular world. He's like, what's next?
yeah.
So I think overall, great show. And I was actually really impressed with how they were able to tie it up satisfyingly. Is that a word? Because like by like the episode 8, knowing there's only one more episode to go, I'm like, how are they going to tie this up? Because it ends with basically, mom pushing them down the stairs, they're in the car and they're driving. So you have one episode left and there's like a million Jasons running around. How are you going to tie this up? But they did it,
Well,
it's where it's like, yeah, we could talk about that just because I feel like it could end there or you could keep going. But if you do keep going, please make it worth it because it could end up like Westworld, where it's like it was a brilliant first season and now you just kind of like it just got lost, in my opinion.
yeah,
You're gonna say
I'm curious because I told you, and I'll say it again, but what I thought should happen at the end before I watched episode 9. Um, or maybe I even started
No, you
episode
did.
9 at that point. Um, but I just knew at that point the ability to end it right, to stick the landing, you have a small window, right? This is like you can cheese it up and just, just have it work. And to a degree they kind of did. Like it is like the cheesier happy ending, but they did make it work. So I can't fault them there. Although there are some things that I have to say about that too. Um, but like what Andrew, what did you think was going to happen at the end before
Yeah, no,
that?
I actually had no idea. I just thought the only thing they can do ultimately is, just try to go to like a different world. That's the only thing they could do. But I still didn't really see that as like a satisfying ending, because then what about all the other Jasons? What about all the other people that are just kind of left hanging, those storylines? But I think that they kind of did address all those things. Although while I still don't know what all those other Jasons did, you know, at least they had a chance to say goodbye, and that to me was better than just like, oh, we're leaving and they're just like out there running around looking for them, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
I was hoping that Bad Jason, or aka Jason 2, would, since he created this mess, I was hoping that he would try to um, put a stop to the hundreds of Jasons that are running around, maybe close that portal for good or something. I was hoping that he would do something a little more, because since he created the chemical compound, he created all of it. But that said, I was I felt okay with the ending. I liked it. There's a part of me that was like, that's not fair that they need to leave their world when the three of them, like the entire Destin family, didn't do anything wrong. They're just peacefully living their lives, and poor Jason gets like yanked from his reality by another version of himself, and all he wants to do is just go back to his life and go back to his family. So I thought that kind of sucked, but it leaves open the door for all these different possibilities. Now, if there is a second season, then I think in order for them to make it really interesting is to focus less on the Destins and just sort of assume that they're out there living their lives and having this adventure, and they've found a reality that works for them. And then focus more on Amanda, Ryan, and Leighton's story.
Mhm.
Especially Amanda and Ryan. I think that would be really cool to
And,
see
and
how.
and they, to be fair, they did set that up. Like that is the one thing, and like you said, Leighton, I think too. But those two things were set up. If they were going to go further, like those things were clearly set up. I agree. I think that the Destin story is effectively over. I mean, you kind of have this one world that's a Destin dumpster. There's like a bazillion Jasons running around. But I don't know what you do about that. Like story wise. And that was my thing, is like once they all started popping up, I was like, there can't be a fix that makes sense. You can't just have him go and snap his fingers and have them all disappear. And you
True.
can't be, you can't go up to each one of them and be like, here, buddy, here's your one trip. This will definitely get you back to your own world, because there's no guarantee in that. They probably didn't have enough of the magic travel goo anyways. Um, and so it was, like I said, it was a really tricky ending for me. The ending that made sense, the only one that would have worked, would have been for
Ryan and
Daniela
yeah.
and
On Ryan,
Charlie
yes.
to go on the run, to just
Mm.
bail and leave no evidence behind and just take off, um, and start over. Because the one thing, at the end of the story, they left with Jason and they went to a new world. But there's actually no guarantee that that's the Jason from episode 1. We assume it is. He assumes he is, but they all assume they were until they started bumping into other Jasons. So in theory, there's no guarantee. We have to be left with the idea that it is, and hope that it was. And to be fair, at least emotionally, like he was the same guy. He wasn't unstable. You know, he didn't want to do anything wrong. You know, he just wanted to be with his family and go. The unfair part of that is we saw, you know, 40 of those at the box at the end. So he was the one that got there right and got the safe word. You know,
But you know
like
what though? I have a question though, but I feel like all the other Jasons seem to acknowledge him as Jason 1. The other ones, even though one of them was like, wait, no, why does he get to do it? Like, you know, but they're like, no, that's Jason number 1. Let them through, you know? So I mean, I hear you, but at the same time, it's like, yeah, I think
I
that
felt like that was more because she had made her choice than it was because of who he was.
I
Uh,
agree.
it's fair.
I don't think it was, I didn't see it so much as they acknowledged that he was like the original, like it was his reality. But the fact that she made
Brought it
that choice.
together.
yeah.
And yes, it, you know, we may never know, is it the right Jason? But I think it's more about that Jason, first of all, gave her agency.
Mhm.
Whereas a lot of the other Jasons were trying to make the decision for her or
Yeah.
control. But whether that is the right Jason or not, he certainly got the temperament down of the
Mhm.
original Jason.
Yeah.
And that was like giving her that sense of agency. And I think over time, like when she saw that, she felt comfortable and trusted him. And ultimately, I think that's what it came down to, is that she made that choice.
Yeah. Yeah. And even if he wasn't, and like I said, I feel like he was. I mean, that's the reason we were following him, right? Like he's the one. But even if he wasn't, he's at least the closest approximation. Like he's everything that she wanted him to be, or everything that he was supposed to be. So they went, you know, they went on their way. You know, in that interview with Jennifer Connelly, she said that from an actor standpoint, nobody told them what was on the other side of that door, right? So when the show ends, when they open the door, when they walk through, they don't know where they're going, and it doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is they're going together. And you know, um, in her mind and in Joel Edgerton's mind, like that was the Joel, right? So I mean, and you have to assume that it is, but like I said, there's no guarantee, and so it's a trip. Like there's so many branches of story. I mean, there's whole, you know, in theory, whole universes where it wasn't him and it was somebody else. You know, like it's a trip. Like new universes are being created with every decision made during the show we're watching, and we just don't see those universes. Like it's wild. And you know, the other thing too is that we saw when he cemented up the box, it didn't stop the box from working everywhere else. I don't think there's a way to destroy the box. You know, so that's the other thing. And I think that is the gotcha with the box though. As soon as one Jason created the box, an infinite number of Jasons created the box. But there are worlds where he didn't. So that's the one thing that I don't quite grab onto is why does it exist in some worlds and not others? Or why does it exist in all worlds even if he didn't create them?
I also wonder, like, when you open the door from the box, are you walking into a world that existed before you open the door, or are you creating that world as soon as you open the door? Because I feel like Amanda, like it's almost like she visualized this world that she eventually went to. So did she create that universe or did it already exist? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? On the answer to that?
I feel like it has to exist. I mean, if you follow what multiverse is, it means everything started from the same point. So say we're starting with the Big Bang as is the best theory that we have for the creation of the universe at this point. If you start from there, literally the infinite universes start from there. There are theories that get super wild when you talk about infinite universes, that the Big Bang was actually two realities crashing into each other, causing an explosion that then created the universe. Because it almost doesn't make sense that all of the mass of the universe was infinitesimally small and then exploded and now is all the mass in the universe. You know, and just to get scientific, like there's no evidence that the universe as at the speed that it's going right now is going to contract again. So the expansion of the universe is so great that we're more likely to keep expanding and just die out. Now, that won't be in our lifetime, obviously. So as depressing as it sounds, it won't be for a really fucking long time. But at some point, you know, if that's what happens, everything just keeps going until it's too far from something that to keep it warm, everything dies. So, you know, it's interesting, you know, but you have to assume that if everything is alternate realities, that they all branch from at least one starting point, and then they come out. But I don't think anybody has the power to create them. I think they just have the power to, you know, try and direct it. And to a degree, I think that just has to be a plot driver, like more than anything that would make sense in real theoretical physics as far as this goes. Um, but I don't know.
And the reason I asked the question ultimately and slowly jump into is just because, like, you know, again, if we're making decisions and each decision creates like a new reality, then it's like, then do we have the power of creation? That's all I'm asking. But your turn, Sonny.
No, that's a fascinating question. I don't know. I see it more like in the context of Amanda when she created that one world where she decided this is where I'm going to stay. She was very intentional about it. She did from learning from their previous experiences, she wrote down what she wanted to create. She wasn't too specific, but specific enough to feel, it almost seems like, feel the type of world she wanted to live in. She mentioned that she wanted to live in a world with empathy, where people make decisions based on empathy and where technology doesn't harm the environment. And the world that they showed was beautiful. It was just absolutely gorgeous and stunning and seemed like people were kinder. There was nuclear fission week, I think, something like
Mm-hmm.
that mentioned.
Oh, it was cold fusion, I think, is what it was.
Oh, that's right. Yes. And so I think Amanda found a way like that. I would think that that world already exists out of the infinite possibilities, but she found a way to align herself, her energy with that world. And when she opened the door, she was able to then access that world.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like the kind of gotcha behind it too is that the reason that world exists isn't because of a decision that she made. It was decisions made before she was born, but that is a world she was born into. So she was able to go to it.
That's right.
Um, so it was, you know, and you had the flip side. You had the one world they went to where everything was literally decaying because of whatever choices were made before they got there. And so, you know, it's definitely it's interesting. It's certainly a thought-provoking show, if nothing else, right? It just also happens to be a well-made, well-acted, entertaining show.
Speaking
Um,
of thought provoking, do you think the show had any message or
For
messages?
sure, for sure. I think it came from Jason too at the end, and it's like, shut up and live the life you have. Like, it was literally was like the grass is not greener on the other side because he literally because he told our Jason, you know, Jason 1, he said, I thought you would be happy in my life. He said, I thought you would be happy with what I have, and I thought I would be happy here. And neither one of them was happy in any other situation. And you can see that nobody was happy anywhere else because they all came back. You had, you know, it's an almost infinite number of Jasons coming back just to come back to this life that he had. And I remember I jokingly texted you, I was like, is there a Jason at some point that when they got to that utopia world, Amanda, after bouncing through however many worlds they bounced through before, just looked at everything and said, I'm never going to make it back. And I could just stay here and be happy. Because they were kind of moving in that direction. And the only reason they didn't is because he fought against it because he wanted to get back to his wife and family, which I think is a very powerful driver. But also from some of the things that other Jasons did and they went through and who they became, like somewhere there's a Jason that was like, this is this, I'll be happy here. You know, I can't win this battle I'm fighting, so I'll be happy here.
Assuming
Yeah.
they were lucky enough to actually have the same, because Amanda like clearly died on some of the other Jasons, right?
Sure.
So it would have to be, but but again, if it's infinite, there was a Jason that where Amanda and Jason made it and they got to that spot and then he made a mistake. Amanda might be the only one who ended up potentially better off than where she was before, because I think Amanda was basically in love with bad Jason or Jason 2.
Yeah.
And he was like, okay, you're just basically my plaything. And, but she was just like, I'm devoted to you, hopelessly, like the Grease movie. Anyway, and now she's like kind of doing her own thing, so I feel like in some respect, and I guess if it's infinite possibilities, maybe in some respects the grass can be greener. But that said, I do think that the idea of kind of appreciating your own life and not acting out of fear, but acting out of love is the way to go. That's the message I take away, because I think that when you have that fear in the box, then when you open the box, you're going to walk into a fire world or a death world. That plague world was crazy. What was I going to say? And I was trying to find that quote that Jason said, Jason 2, but he did say something to the effect of, yeah, I was afraid to let love in or something like that. And, and I was really satisfied by that. The fact that he could actually have a mea culpa and be like, even the gunshot to the head of like bad Jason, I thought it was going to be like the son or the wife. So when, as in like psychopathic Jason with the shotgun, I'll call him Shotgun Jason. So when the bullet hole went through the head of Shotgun Jason, I thought it was going to be the wife or the kid. And then when you found out it's Jason 2, and then he's like, I came here to help and it's my fault. And I'm like, wow, okay. Like, damn, like that was just, it was a huge part of why I liked the show. And it just so shows the naivete, like you said, of him thinking, oh, like, and also another thing I'll say really quickly, this is the way I talk, is like another message I thought was like regret is just, it's kind of a useless emotion because it's going to make you make bad decisions. You need to make peace with your decisions, period. Because it's regret that made him build a box. It's regret that made him go and find, Daniela, and it's just wrong, and then like, just so first, number one, before you make a decision, and not everyone can do this, and you will make mistakes, but this is me now on my soapbox. Always, in my opinion, choose the path of least regret. And I've had people tell me, oh, it's a fear-based. I'm like, no, it's not fear-based. Fuck off. What it is think to yourself, imagine both scenarios, okay? And imagine both scenarios going wrong. Which going wrong will feel less painful? Go that way. For example, and I was telling somebody on a Lyft ride, and thank you guys for letting me talk. I was at a lake house, and you may have heard this story, Saloni. I was at a lake house, and there was a cliff, and you could jump into the lake. And I remembered, like, I thought I could do it. I didn't have my glasses on, and so I couldn't really see. And when I got to the rock, it felt slippery. So I was like, you know what? If I don't push out far enough, I'm going to hit the rocks. I'm not going to hit the water. I could be paralyzed or worse. So, but meanwhile, there's a whole bunch of little boats on the lake. They're all going, jump, jump, jump. So I said to myself, Andrew, what will you regret less? Walking away from here, being thought of as maybe less than courageous, put it mildly, from these people you're never going to see again, or jumping, missing, being paralyzed or getting cut the hell up, getting infected and all that other stuff. Which one's worse, Andrew? Clearly hitting the rocks and getting infected and broken back or whatever. So you know what? Take the L. And I did. So that's all I'm saying. So if I had jumped and got paralyzed, maybe I'd build a box and then find, I'm joking, But the point is, regret is bad. So if you have to regret, like push it out of your brain or always choose passively regret. And if she has a baby and really think hard about this, what do you want, man? Do you want a life of science or do you want a life of love? And I feel like Jason 2 chose a life of science. Yo, Amanda loved you, man. Let that shit in. Period. You had it. Make peace. Water the grass on your side.
That's the thing too, is that
100%.
Jason 2 didn't feed that relationship the way that he could have, because you can see that they did have a connection even when it wasn't the same Jason.
Yes.
Like they were still a form of a match, right? And there are, again, infinite universes. There's a lot of universes where Jason and Daniela were not together. So, he found other matches in those other worlds. So it's not like, that's the other thing too. This isn't a show about like fate and destiny and how everything has to go a certain way. This show's literally about how anything can go anyway, and you have to deal with the things that are going the way that they're going for you.
As they are.
Yeah.
To that point, well, and Andrew, your point about love versus fear and getting over regret. I will say that I felt like Jason 2's story wasn't so much, I think one interpretation, for example, could be that Jason 1 is living this blissful life because he chose marriage and a family, right? But I don't think it's as simple as that. Because there are many people in those situations that feel like, well, shoot, I'd rather be Jason 2, or the other way around. So I think it goes deeper than that. And it goes to the point, Andrew, that you raised about making decisions based on love versus fear. I think Jason 2, in his theme of not letting love in, he was making decisions based on fear. And I don't think it was so much that you have to be in a relationship, because people can end up in a relationship with someone that isn't compatible with them, but they're making a decision to be with that person out of fear of being alone, out of fear of, I've invested so much time with this person, it's too hard to walk away, all of those reasons, right? So I think the bigger point is, when you're faced with a choice, are you making a decision based on what you're going to love and enjoy versus what you're going to fear? And often we face decisions, there's forks in the road where we have fear, right? We have fear like of the unknown, there's anxiety. I think that is common. But if you move in the direction of what ultimately will excite you, what will give you love and growth, what's going to bring you joy, those are always going to be the right decisions. So to me, I feel like the takeaway was Jason 2 continued to make decisions out of fear. And he regretted that over time. Even though he created this amazing career, he was really trying hard to go back to what he thought, what he perceived was what he got wrong, which was he should have chosen this path with Daniela and Charlie. But then even he realized when he tried to enter that world, it wasn't really the world for him, because Jason 1 had invested the time and energy in the ups and downs and all of it of being in that relationship. And now Jason 2 is trying to replace that Jason, but he's replacing that Jason with his version of what he thinks is joy, which is like power, money, making decisions for Daniela about her artwork and stuff, where she was not.
Yeah.
So I do think that there's so many beautiful lessons that go beyond just the surface of, you can look at it from a surface point, but I think the deeper part of it is there's so many lessons that you can walk away and really incorporating into your life, and like a sense of just appreciation for where we all are and watering our own grass, to your point, Andrew, as opposed to thinking that the grass is greener.
Yeah. And you saw it too, like Jason 2 just wasn't able, even though our Jason and Daniela weren't like blissfully happy when the show started. Like they had their own sets of problems. because they're real people in a real relationship, right? Like that's life. They had issues and they were working them out there, they were fine. And like Jason too didn't understand that because he was never in it. So he just kind of came in and, like you said, tried to patch everything up. The whole artwork thing at the show, like in his brain, couldn't possibly be a bad thing. He was, helping her get her stuff on display without having lived with her long enough to understand that, what art means to somebody. He lived in a world where science and money did everything for him, and he didn't have to, and so it it didn't it's just nothing he did worked. He didn't click, even though he tried, because he, like you said, he didn't build those relationships. He didn't build his way from point A to point D, right? Like he skipped B and C altogether without learning the things that he needed to learn. Like he almost killed the son, right? Which was another weird thing. Like he couldn't click with the son either. He always, at some point he realized he wished he'd had a kid. So he's got the kid, but he doesn't know what to do. You don't just pick up a 16-year-old off the street and be like, "Hey, you're my kid now. We're going to be great." It doesn't work like that. I've got a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 13-year-old, and there's days I want to strangle them, and I love them. I've been there their whole lives. So like, it's not, you don't just pick it up, and you can't just buy them a car and be like, "Here, this is going to be perfect now." Um, and then you saw it with Jason 1, when in one of the realities he popped into that seemed like it was the right one. Like he thought he was there, and then the sun comes down and it's the wrong sun. And so he
It's
can't
nuts.
he can't connect with that sun. And you can just see, like, if you're not where you belong, it just won't quite work. Like, so, things just won't go together, and you can't, or at least you probably can't just jam those puzzle pieces together and make them fit.
It's so
Yeah.
funny you said that, puzzle pieces, because that's literally what and of course I can't find it now. You'll have to put it in. Here we go. Yeah, yeah. The world is no longer safe for any of you, and I hope you can find a new home, and I'm sure you will, because you've all been through things I can't imagine, and they've shaped you into an even more perfect puzzle that can only fit one another. That's literally the last thing that Jason 2 says in that little recording that the
Mm-hmm.
son plays. That's kind of funny you said that. Yeah, I mean, and one thing I'm just realizing now as we're talking too is because he was a scientist, like, these chemicals or whatever he works with, they don't respond back to him. They do whatever he tells them to do, like he just mixes them up. But humans aren't like that. Humans aren't just these variables that you can just control because you're a scientist. They react. So when, he's doing things and, Danielle is like, close up her shop, she's done. And he has to go see Amanda, and then he's like, you're afraid of commitment. It's like any slight difficulty in life from humans he can't handle. And that's the thing that Jason 1 has learned, whereas Jason 2 just has never dealt with it. He can't deal with the messiness of relationships. So I think he learned that about himself. Although, frankly, I would, I do want to know what happens to Jason 2 and the rest. Even though their story is kind of over, like, that's character development, man. I don't think I was expecting that. And
Yeah,
it was actually, I bought it.
I think Jason 2's character development all made sense. I think where he ends up is fine. I don't think there's a way to develop the other characters. It's just too many, because it's literally infinite,
Yeah.
and so,
As
you
far as the
know,
Jasons, yeah.
yeah. So I mean, you can't really close those up. I do feel like it's interesting that Jason 2 still found his way to Amanda in this world, right? Like he didn't have to. He didn't have to go to a therapist. He didn't have to do all this. He specifically searched her out because in his world, she was the only person that understood him. And so, he had to do that again. Like that's the person for him. So I feel like if he stayed, he would have found his way to her and at least tried. It probably wouldn't have worked because she's not the same Amanda, but maybe there's a chance. But
If he
again,
apologizes.
well, and not just that, like he's coming in with an Amanda in his head that is not
Yeah.
this Amanda. right? And just like he thought he knew what Daniela would be, and she wasn't. So, I mean, I feel like he's learned that lesson, but it would still be hard to go find somebody that you thought or in your head is one person and they're not.
Right.
But it is interesting that he instantly gravitated to her when he needed a fix, when he needed something to be taken care of.
I'm digressing, but I gotta say, I think it would be kind of cool to meet other versions of yourself and other versions of other people, just knowing they're going to be different, just to observe the quirks and like seeing what's the same and what's different. I just think it would be utterly fascinating for me personally. Because I guess I don't, yeah, I think that for my personality is I don't feel entitled to any behavior from anyone. And if anyone decides to be cool to me or nice to me or engage me, whatever, I consider it a gift, right? So if I met, for example, Saloni, if I met another Saloni from another universe and she was like a total like to me, like I'd be like, okay, oh well, I would be like, no, why would you like me? It's Andrew. Like, no, I'd be like, okay, that's Saloni, okay. And then I'll go to another universe, and that's what I'm saying. So to me, it's like I'd be fine with it, but I guess not everyone's like that. Some people are like, no, why can't you be like my Saloni from my universe? I don't know.
Well, I sort of I feel like Kevin, to your point about like the Amanda situation where he is going to this Amanda too, who has never met him, doesn't know anything about him, but she's also a therapist in this other reality. I feel like he sought her out because it was just pure ego. I think Jason too really felt like he could,
Win
even though
anyone
he
over.
knew she didn't know him, I think he just felt like, well, I know you. I know everything about you, your past, your history. And so at one point, he is annoyed when she calls him out and says, you don't talk like a man that's been married for 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to bounce at any moment there's a conflict, like a delicate conflict. He's like, I'm out of here. It's not going his way. And so you could tell like he comes from this world where he's used to getting whatever he wants.
Yeah.
He's used to having people, just do whatever he wants them to do. And I think the Amanda of that world was sort of like that. And so his way of just seeking her out, I think, is maybe a sense of ego and a little bit of comfort where he's in this world and he realizes maybe I don't belong here, but I don't know where I really belong. And then at one point, he even says all these things to Amanda too about her past, where she's like, I need you to leave.
Mm-hmm.
It was so uncalled for, but it was totally ego driven. It was
Yep.
like,
Yep.
I know this about you. It's like, well, yeah, but that's not the point of existence, is to like control things. It's um really another lesson, by the way. It's really to experience a journey, the ups and the downs and the lessons that you learn along the way, but not to make it like this perfect utopia type existence, because obviously that would be very boring. And it is to go through some of those challenges that Jason one endured with Daniela.
Yeah. And I think, see, I just remembered, I think one of the turning points for Jason too also was when he was taped, he was tied to the banister and the other crazy Jason was talking to him. I think he pointed out that he was responsible because he left and because of the people that he was associated with in his world. When he left and he sent the other Jason there, that directly led to the Daniela in his world being killed. And
Yeah.
I think that was also a turning point for him. Even though he couldn't have her, he obviously loved her enough that he wanted to go back and find her. So Daniela for Jason too was still like a linchpin in his life. And to know that he was responsible for her death, even though he wasn't directly responsible for it, he didn't send somebody over there to do it. He was already gone. Those people were acting because of the world he created and the choices that he made. And it never would have happened if he didn't leave, because the other Jason wouldn't have shown up and ran there and done all that. So I think that was a little eye-opening for him too, because that was at that point he had been beat up. His new Daniela had pushed him down the stairs. Like everybody at this point knew that he wasn't who he was trying to be. And, he'd lost everything at that point. And then to know that even the Daniela that he couldn't have in his own world was gone. Yeah. Is, and if he found his way back, he couldn't get Amanda either. She's gone too.
He really hit rock bottom when he fell downstairs,
Yep.
literally and figuratively.
Yep.
Man, and I guess like we're gonna wind down now, but like, what was up with his company? Like Leighton and all them being like psychopaths, like killing everybody. And that one like crazy one who got her fingers chopped off like from the door,
In the
like
door.
she was just killing everybody. Like, she's going to kill Daniela.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what, dude? Like, what? Like, that's like, how did he? I mean, do you think Jason 2 knew that his people were that murderous, or like, what do you think?
I think so, at least to a degree. I think when you create something like that with the mentality that he obviously had, he was all about power. He was all about control. And these people were people that would keep him in power and control using obviously whatever, means necessary.
Yeah, which was why I think it's not necessarily, I think, wrong to call him bad Jason.
Yeah, that's fair. I just think, it just took him a while to come around to what he was doing. So at least he was still able to be reasonable. But he could never go back to his world and live his life. So, and I don't think, at least from what we saw, they didn't leave any of the serum behind, right? Like they took it all.
No, they took
So
it all. And Leighton, I think me and Sloane agree that Leighton from his world is probably dead, because like the last time you see him, he's all like haggard and bloody. And, this guy is definitely not a love-based dude. So every door he's opening is like, man. So
yeah, he definitely picked a world that killed him. Like probably on his first try.
He was bloody and limping by World 4. So yeah, this guy, that Leighton did not last. I did love though how at the end they showed the other Leighton that was just having the time of his life. Yeah. He was just like, I'm just going from one world to another. And I loved that. I thought that was cool to see.
Blair, when the badass Blair, who was all traumatized from those like, nail insects, whatever.
Yeah.
Like she finally does leave and she said, I'll leave when I'm ready. And she did, and then you see her get up and go. I want to see where she went, because like she's badass. She's like Ripley, like from like Alien. She's like the Ripley of this show. I liked her. I like her as an actor.
Yeah, they definitely set up at least the potential for interesting stories for a season 2. I just like I think Saloni said, I don't think it's the Destins. I don't think we need to see their story anymore. I think their story is closed. You could do Jason 2 and just do it without Daniela. Like if he tried to hook back up with Ryan and Amanda and stuff, I think that might be okay. But I don't think we need to see any more of the hunting down my Daniela and all that jazz. I think that's well closed. And I think anything after this would almost be an adventure story rather than a searching story. And I told you the show to a degree was a much smarter, more mature version of like Sliders back in the day. If you remember that show with
it was on Fox. I know that.
Yeah, it was the
guy from Stand By
Me,
Jerry
O'Connell. Yeah. And they had a thing and they could literally slide between universes and go explore them. It wasn't quite as defined or intelligent as Dark Matter was, but it's still kind of same idea to universe hopping, but it was definitely more fun. But yeah, I think this show, it was fantastic. It's proof too that because you see a lot of networks shy away from sci-fi. Like good sci-fi is hard to find in a lot of cases. And Apple TV is the one network that consistently puts out good sci-fi. Because you've got this, you've got, God damn it, thumb again. You've got this, you've got For All Mankind, which is incredible. You've got Foundation, Silo, all these shows that are weird. Like they're not just sort of sci-fi-ish and something else. Like there's some weird stuff in there
Is
that
that
makes them pretty.
corporation show a sci-fi show too? I forget- it's not corporation, but it's like that one kid, that one guy. Shit. I think
Adam
Severance. Severance?
Severance.
Severance. Yes.
That's
Is
a
that sci-fi? Yeah.
oh yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah, and that show's freaking incredible. You haven't watched that one yet?
Not yet, but I know it's on. I know
Oh
you highly recommended it. Sony, did you see it?
I did,
Did you
yeah.
like
I
it?
I wanted, I loved it.
Okay, cool.
I didn't see a season two.
it's coming. It's coming out this year.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's coming out this year. If you're into sci-fi, For All Mankind is really cool. I think I told Andrew about it before, but it's effectively it starts in the space race between us and Russia. But the gist of the show is that Russia actually beats us to the moon instead, and from there it is alternate timeline. So
Interesting.
it's like a timeline that where we lost the space race, and then everybody goes crazy because now we have to win the next step of the space race, and I think every season jumps forward a handful of years, if not a decade or more. So we see progression over time. Like I think the most recent season was them trying to get to Mars. I think I'm like a season behind. Um, but it's really good. The acting in that is great. Another one, did you ever see The Man in the High Castle on Amazon Prime?
I
Yes.
love that one.
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
Yeah. So there's good sci-fi out there. I just think Apple TV, for whatever reason, is really leaning into it. Like they seem to focus more on sci-fi than other networks. Granted, their release of shows is much smaller. They have a lot fewer shows. I'm actually curious about Presumed Innocent, which I just saw recommended when this one ended, and that's with
I know you're
Roadhouse
talking about
guy.
he was the he's a sibling. What's his name?
No,
Uh
he's the bad guy in Spider-Man. No,
oh, hold on a second. Presumed
fr-
innocent.
yeah,
Hold on.
I can
Yeah.
picture his face, and I can't remember his
God.
name. I can't remember
Yes.
his name because it's
Yeah, Gyllenhaal.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he is a
That's what I'm
sibling.
saying. He's a
His
twin.
sister. Yeah, yeah,
Maggie.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's right.
yeah. So that one's 4 or 5 episodes in. It's not done yet, and it's every week. So I'm not going to rush on it, but I think I'll give it a shot here pretty soon, even though it's not a sci-fi show. That one's good. But Apple TV is they're putting out good television. What was the other one? It wasn't Severance, but it was a weird one where they had a baby. It was more of a horror show than a sci-fi show.
Uh,
Um,
um, oh my servants.
so, yeah, Servant.
That,
That was a trip. Like that show was weird with Ron Weasley from Harry Potter was in
yes.
that. He was great, actually. I thought he was fantastic in that. It was really cool to
I-
see him doing something that was not Harry Potter.
yeah.
Um,
I think season one was great. I think season two was good too. I just lost interest as the seasons progressed.
yeah, it got weirder and weirder and just like kind of more chaotic and
Yeah.
yeah. But the first season was because it was creepy. Like you're like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
Um,
And they also the husband was a chef. And
mhm,
so it was really cool to see all the dishes he would make. And then the brother-in-law, I'm forgetting, you just mentioned him right
mhm.
now. It's like loved all the wine. They had like fancy wine. I loved the fact that it all took place in that brownstone,
Yeah, yeah,
that townhome. I think that was intentional, but then they had some episodes that were outside of that.
yeah, but not much. Speaking of that, as it's, we're apparently moving away from dark matter. Speaking of that, there's a new movie coming out. I think it's this year, next year, by Robert Zemeckis. I think it's called Here, and the entire movie takes place from one angle in a living room, and it takes
Interesting.
place over the span of 100 years. So
Wow.
yeah,
There's some
so
deep stuff going on too. Like
yeah, it's Tom
he
Hanks and Robin Wright are
yeah.
the two main characters, but there's obviously going to be more characters if it's 100 years. But I'm super fascinated by the idea because it literally is like this is the angle we're taking. This is the only place you're going to see it from, and let's see what happens. And then it's pretty wild. Um, Plus, Robert Zemeckis is pretty awesome. He did Back to the Future and all that. So
He's done a lot. Yeah, he's like I
he's
associate
legit.
Spielberg as well. So I
Which
think
one?
they're like
Oh, Spielberg. Yeah.
Spielberg. I think they work together. I
Yeah.
was just gonna say also, because I'm a stickler for facts, I was wrong. Maggie is the older sister of Jake Gyllenhaal, but I've always considered them kind of like I can't think of one without the other. So, and they started together, right? In that were they both in Donnie Darko?
I don't think
Maybe
so.
not. Okay, my
I don't
bad.
think so.
No worries.
Um, but anyways, Dark Matter, awesome show. By the way, since we didn't tell anybody what it's actually about, it's about a dude that creates a box, and this box lets him travel from reality to reality to reality to reality to reality. And this guy decides that he made a mistake being a brilliant scientist and creating the box, wants to go back and live the life of from the point of a decision that he made in his presumably 20s, where he did in his reality, he did not go to a party, went to work, made a bunch of money, built the box. But in the other reality, he went to the party, met the woman of his dreams, had a kid, lived his life, and he wanted to effectively steal that life. That's the gist of Dark Matter. We totally ruined the plot of the whole damn thing without telling you what it was actually about, but I feel like we kind of explained it. But yeah, it's an awesome show. I think we can pretty much universally say that we would all recommend it.
It was time well spent. Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Um, before I sign off, I just wanted to leave this one quote from Dark Matter. It's by Amanda. She says it to Jason in episode 5. She says, taking the time to emotionally regulate ourselves is a worthy investment. And I think that's a powerful quote because I think that's very applicable to life and to any reality that you want to live. I think if you take the time to emotionally regulate yourself, I think your reality is going to unfold in kind.
Yep.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Awesome.
Appreciate you coming on. And if we all happen to watch the same thing again, we hope you'll be open to joining us again.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you both for having me here. It's always a pleasure to join you guys.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Have an excellent night, and I'm sure we will see you soon.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Bye. And then there were 2.
And then there were 2. See, I feel like every time she comes on, she's so like smart and studious. I feel
Aw.
like she could have been a therapist. Like the way she talks, she's got like the soothing therapist voice. She could be Amanda.
That was actually her favorite character. So I'm not saying too much to the studio audience, but no, she loved Amanda. She was like, that's absolutely, yeah, she identified with that character.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I think Amanda and Daniela were both well fleshed out characters. Like they were both very likable. They were two opposite ends of the coin. Amanda's science and Daniela's art, and those two things.
You know, it's funny actually. I just feel like, we're getting so much better at just diversity. I mean, even a lot of women writers were, I think, and directors were on the show. I noticed that. But the names Amanda and Daniela, if you saw their pictures, you would actually picture Amanda being named Daniela. And like that totally I thought of that. I wonder if that was a conscious decision. But either way, yeah, I love them both very much.
Yeah, I'm
And
curious. I want to read the book because I've
Hmm.
never read anything by Blake Crouch, but now I'm definitely curious. So
Apparently there's another show by Blake Crouch that
yeah,
ended with one book, but they actually made more seasons from it. So there's precedent to the idea of them going, turning this into like what's it called? Oh my God, I forgot his name, but the guy who wrote a Game of Thrones, like just kind
oh,
of
George R. R. Martin.
show, yeah, beyond what's written. But yeah, no, I think we did Dark Matter to death, and we can now
Yeah.
move on.
Well, real quick, let's hit The Boys because
Oh
we
yes.
both watched that. I talked about it week or two. I guess it was just a
Oh,
week ago, maybe it was 2 weeks ago. And basically I said, it's fine. this season, it doesn't feel as progressive as the last couple of seasons in the beginning because it kind of picks up where it left off. Nobody's really any different or doing anything different in the beginning of the season. And so it didn't feel as creatively like amazing to me. Now that I'm further in, I think episode 4 was probably the best Homelander episode we've ever had. That's him in the bunker. I think that was
crazy.
Anthony Starr was incredible. Incredibly psychotic. Like, I don't want to meet him in any way, shape, or form, that character. But I think it was an incredible performance by him.
Oh yes. And I will say that you are in for some fun. I think for season episode 5. I did watch it. And I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm not. I mean, but there's just one scene in particular where like I was watching it and I was just watching it just like, in a very comfortable position on my bed, whatever. I sat up and the adrenaline just raced through like compound V in my body. And I was just like way more awake. And I was like, WTF. And for sorry. For a show like The Boys, which is already filled with WTF moments, like now I hope I'm not overhyping it, but like I was like, wow, like I've never seen that before. And it was, yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I know about the 5th episode is we get a handful of returning characters that we haven't seen in a while. I know we got Giancarlo Esposito.
Yes.
We get some of the Gen V characters.
Yes.
So I'm really excited actually to see those two worlds come together because they very clearly live in the same universe in the same timeline, and they tied them together at the end of Gen V. But I think seeing these characters like fully cross over is going to be a big deal. It's a well fleshed out universe, I think.
So well fleshed out, and I'm so glad I'm not living in it. I'm sorry.
No shit.
Soup's running around like killing people. Like, even like that whole ice skating scene where like they're just cutting off fingers and like actually that was episode 4, wasn't it?
No, that's episode 5. Because they're up in there.
No, shit. Okay, well, damn it.
Yeah, because episode 4 is entirely Homelander and the Starlight versus what's her bucket. That's basically the entirety of episode 4.
Wait, okay. Wait, sorry, this is like so weird. But wait, when Huey's in the vents, like when he's crawling in the auditorium, whatever, like, so you're telling me you haven't seen any of that yet?
I don't think so, unless that was episode 3 and I don't remember.
Yeah, I feel like Homelander. Okay, whatever. Either way, okay. So did you see the lobotomy scene?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, that's cool. Anyway, so I'm liking it because it's crazy because not to get political, but I don't know if you watched the presidential debate. But if you did, dude, like it's not looking good. Like, like I'm not gonna say whatever. Trump's winning. I'm sorry. Like, unless like some crazy stuff happens, like I just think that, we did not get, the Biden that we needed to have. And I'm just saying all of that to say that the Starlighters are very much like, the left. And then you've got like, everybody who is like Soup and Vought, like that whole thing is very right. And the parody of it is, it does feel very close to home, to the point where I think that even what I'm seeing in the headlines is there's people who are feeling kind of offended by like the parody, and apparently there's people out there who actually thought, which is crazy to me, like they actually thought Homelander was a good guy. Like what? Yep. Like what show have you been watching? Like, are you crazy? And then Homelander, like straight up, like, yo, when he says to the guy, like, get it hard or I'll laser your dick off, dude, I was like, game over. Like, I was just like, you're fucked. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't, if I'm terrified.
Then he walks over, he's like, dude, you're getting your dick blood on my shoes.
Dude,
I was like,
and I'm all about the lessons. Okay. So this show, amongst many shows in history, don't work for the bad guys. Just don't. Like, if you are working for the bad guy, just know that you're fucked. Like, even if it's you're just doing your job, you're fucked. So don't. I felt bad for all those people in the bunker. He even said there's some new faces. Yeah, you're still fucked. Like, he And the fact that he left the woman, like the main director, alive, I think is crazy. Maybe it was
Yeah, but
just like,
didn't he lock her in?
yeah, he did lock her in, didn't
And
he?
so
So
she's
she
gonna
could die.
die there, but she's got to live with what she sees until she dies. So like he is a damaged character. Like he is in bad shape anyways, just mentally, and always has been. But uh, yeah, it was a great episode because at least like maybe it just doesn't justify who he is, but at least you see what he went through as a child.
The oven scene.
You know, yeah, you had the oven, you had he was being made fun of. They
Yes.
programmed him because they were afraid of him. Like,
But remember, he lasered himself out of the womb. I mean, diabolical, Like
yeah,
so, yeah. And basically, it's almost like he's unkillable. Like he's a god. So they did what they had to do. Now I'm not, like you have to like, how do you control someone who is all powerful? Like you have to like mentally fuck him up, But now he's thrown
or
off the shackles.
you call Mom Pa Kent, dude. Like, there's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and I think that's the point of Homelander, right? This was done the wrong way. Like, Superman landed on Earth. Two very kind people found him, and granted, he was obviously genetically inclined to be kind, right? I mean, that's part of nature versus nurture, right? There is some nature involved. He's not, Clark Kent, Superman is not mentally unstable. Like there are things that worked in the Kent's favor, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. And Vought did it the wrong way because Vought is all about the results and about the money and about all the wrong things, and so that they did the wrong things with Homelander. He didn't, when he lasered his way out and killed a bunch of people out of the womb, was flying out of the womb. He was a baby. He was an infant. That wasn't like he wasn't choosing to do that. He had powers that he didn't know how to control. So sure, you can be afraid of those powers, but if you teach him to use those powers, like kindly, raise him on a farm, raise him out somewhere that's the middle of nowhere, and let him learn to use them, you have a different adult than you do now. But that's not what Vought was about. Vought was about the product.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you're dead on. Um, so, I think overall, like, I do like this season, and it's crazy to me that there's only, I mean, I never paid attention. Apparently, there's only 8 episodes in every season, so we're already like all the way already almost
Yeah.
done. And then next season is going to be the last season, which I think is okay.
Yeah. I'm glad they're ending it where they want to end it. It's a big deal to me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's funny because like, and we'll talk about Acolyte too, but I think episode 5 for me personally is, for me, the strongest episode so far. Just because again, you talked about the return of like,
Yeah.
Giancarlo Esposito, and we get to see a bit more of like what's going on with uh oh my God, Billy
Yeah.
Butcher. And by the way, I can never remember the actor's name. But he should be proud of himself. I mean, he's already a legend in sci-fi, but I really think that this role of Butcher is like, you like that's you. Like that is, you owned it, and no one else I think could have delivered it the way you did.
Dude,
So I'm letting you,
he's in some of the biggest franchises there is. He's in Star
yeah,
Trek.
Star Trek.
He's in Lord of the Rings. He's in this. He was in some. Oh, he was Dredd in the Judge Dredd
Yes.
remake. Like
And the first time I ever saw him was
Thor
Chronicles of,
Ragnarok.
Chronicles of Riddick, I was gonna say.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
That's right. And
that
he
was
was
the first
in
time I ever saw him.
Ragnarok. I mean, he's been in every like major franchise. He's doing all right for himself. But yeah, this character
All of
is.
them.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I've actually met him. I was at a Star Trek convention, and went up and got to meet him. I think I got his autograph on something. But like he's like either I know they get paid to be nice at those. They don't make a ton of money doing those. They actually make most of their money from the autographs more
Mhm.
than anything else, autographs and pictures and things like that. But he was really nice. Like he talked to me for a minute or two, and it just super pleasant and cool. And that's not easy to do. You sit there all day or for hours at a time. There's a lot of stories of people that get kind of irritable doing that.
Yeah. I can
And
imagine.
then there's people that are smart enough to not do it. Like I got a picture with William Shatner at one of the conventions, but he doesn't sit down and sign anything. Like he knows that, I mean, he's 90. I mean, he's not freaking young. But you know, he knows that that's not his thing. But he also, you know, seeing him up on stage, he was a phenomenal storyteller. Like watching him do his little panel, he still told the story for like a half an hour and was just super engaging and charming. So whatever personally you might think about William Shatner from his days as a younger player and a grumpy old man and all that stuff, like he's still an interesting dude.
Charismatic.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I think overall, like, you know, it's really weird too how everyone's all on, you know, is it Erin Moriarty on her case about her changing appearance? Like, why can't you just let people live? Like that to me is really weird. And I usually share anything on my page. Like if it's relevant and topical, I'll share it. But I'm not sharing that because it's just like that to me is like when you don't talk about toxic fandom, that to me is toxic fandom. It's like let her live. It's her
Yeah.
fate. She can do whatever she wants with it. But people just have this thing against Erin Moriarty for her face. It's really weird.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't have a problem with it. I just look at her and I was like, she was
Beautiful
like
before.
that. My problem is with the industry and the way that it makes people feel like they have to do that. Because that makes me sad. Like to see people go out there and get work done because they're 24 and beautiful and they still don't think they're pretty enough. Like that sucks. Because she was beautiful. Like she
He
and
was.
and that's not to say she's not now. I don't want to put her down at all, but like she was beautiful. Like if I met that girl from season one, and if I was just talking to her and she's like, I don't like my nose, I'd be like,
You crazy?
You're beautiful. Don't
Yeah.
But again, not my business. She can do
Yeah.
whatever she wants, and the problem with doing whatever you want in the public eye is the public's going to have an opinion about it. It's the hardest thing about being a celebrity, I think, is the fact that you should be able to have a private life, but you've kind of made the choice not to. It's like this catch 22. Once you're big enough, everybody wants to know everything about you. So you think you want to be famous, but there's stuff that comes along with that just sucks.
Agreed. As far as character development goes, I'm actually liking A Train. I
Hmm.
did not like him like at all, like in all
Yeah,
the other
almost
seasons.
ever. Yeah.
Yes, and now I'm coming around to him because I think they've actually developed his character well. The Firecracker, I think her name is, she's hilarious to me.
Yeah. I
She's
love the
hilarious.
actress. I've always liked Valerie Curry. I've seen her in a bunch of stuff.
Okay.
But
The Deep is hilarious.
she's such a fucking idiot.
Frenchie, his whole storyline, I'll admit, like, so Mike, shout out to Mike, because I know he listens. He's the one who's always asking about the audio. He was like,
Which I think I'm behind on.
uh, he was asking me, he said he heard people saying that, the voice has gotten woke. Like, what do you think? And I said, honestly, I don't really see it as woke. I think maybe the wokest thing might be like Frenchie's plot line because it feels a little out of left field. Like, I don't know if they ever addressed him being like flexible
I
before.
think that they did though. Like I think I saw something where somebody pointed out that is in fact a thing. Yeah, I
Okay.
don't think it's obvious. Like I think if you weren't paying attention and you missed it, it was
I
like a
missed it.
one-time thing. Yeah. So, but I think it's not unprecedented, but
Okay.
it did definitely felt like it came out of left field. Like
Yeah.
even for me, and I'm like totally fine with it.
Yeah.
But like for me,
But
I was like, aren't him and what's her name supposed to like?
exactly. And she's hot. Like, what are you
Oh my
doing?
God.
So,
I
right?
can't.
but like and also another thing about me is like I need to go back and like actually like just brush up on what the hell happened in seasons 2 and 3
Yeah.
because a lot of stuff I'm like they're all mad at Butcher for some reason and I'm like what? So I have to go back and remember because all I remember from season 3 actually is just that epic fight, I'll be honest, between Butcher, Soldier Boy and Homelander. That was just like that was awesome. But yeah, I mean I don't even remember Giancarlo going to jail. So like yeah, there's a lot I need to refresh on. But you know, and I even like Ashley Barrett, the publicist, like her kind of being demoted by Brainiac, if you will. Like that's funny to
Well,
seeing her.
I love that whole thing when he realizes he needs the new girl
Yeah,
whose name I can't remember off the
trying
top
to
of my
think of
head.
it.
But when he's there and he just realizes that everybody is just only ever going to agree with him because they're afraid of him. Like he needs somebody with the balls to stand up to
Mr.
him.
Sage.
He's Sister Sage. Even if he's not going to listen, which he probably is not going to, at least
The truth.
somebody can put something in front of him that maybe he can work with. Because it could be when he's like deep, blow A train. And he's like, okay. And then afterwards he's like, I wasn't really gonna do it. And
Yes.
I was like, yeah, you were, dude.
Oh,
Like, it's just like you're like, oh my God. But like he was really gonna do it because
you're gonna
he
die.
yeah, yeah,
Homelander is crazy. I mean, even that shit. Now I'm afraid to say things. Yeah, okay. Did you see the scene where they're interrogating that woman who worked for Starlight, and they're like, "Hey, we promise you won't hurt you. Just tell us the truth."
yeah, and then
Yeah.
he lasers her through the face. She the sister Sage, she's like, really? We could have got information out of her. And he's like, yeah, she was guilty. It's like, Jesus Christ, dude.
So I'm sorry. Like, Homelander is to the point where if he just shows up, like, just pray you survive the encounter,
Yeah.
and then you never meet him again.
Yeah, chaos will ensue. Like that's all there is to it. I feel like the show isn't a happy show, right? Like it's not a show that is meant to be like positive and all everybody happy ending. But I feel like season 5 has to end with a defeat of Homelander.
And Butcher. I think
I think
both of
Butcher's
them
got to go at
have
some
to.
point. I think
They both have to go.
yeah.
Yes, 1,000%.
I don't think they have to end the show with Homelander's kid being good. I think he could be the next like Homelander. He could be
Big
the next
bad
bad superhero, whatever.
for Gen V. Brilliant.
Something, yeah. I mean, they don't have to end everything,
Yeah.
all tied up in a bow. But I do think at the end of season 5, I think Homelander and probably Butcher have to go.
Yes.
Um, and I think that's important to the story because I don't think you can write the Homelander ship. Like I don't think there's anything you could do with Homelander
He's
that'll
too
make
far gone.
him, yeah, that'll make him a good guy. So, um, yeah, I think he's got to go. But otherwise, like there's still stuff to develop. Like what's her name? Karen Fukuhara. What was her
Nico.
character's name? Make yeah.
Nico.
She ran into the girl that she
Yes.
knew, and so that's a developing storyline. Like there's still a lot of developing storylines to work through before they get to the end. So as long as it's not rushed, as long as they know, and I think they do, I think they legitimately know what's happening between now and the end of season 5. I don't think they're working their way through it. I don't think they're figuring anything out. I think they've got, the bones there. So I think they know exactly where they're going. Um, but yeah, it's a trip. One thing that was interesting is they said they're not going to do, but in the comics, Black Noir is actually a clone of Homelander.
Homelander. Yes. Which is
Um,
nuts.
yeah, it's crazy to me, and they've said adamantly that they're not going to do that, which I mean makes sense. They basically killed him already, anyways.
But it's funny you said that because I literally was just about to mention I think that the Black Noir 2 is hilarious. The fact that he has to like try to
and he's
be
an idiot.
yes, he's narcoleptic.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
and then like reel back in, you're talking too much, or like you're like it's just like he has to like that's just funny to me.
Yeah, like he doesn't get the role. Like he doesn't understand that he's supposed to shut
And
up.
he's asking, "What's my motivation? Like, help me out." Like, yo, like so to me, honestly, like yeah, I think The Boys has been consistent, and I think that
Mhm.
every season has felt different. Like, again, I don't know what's wrong with me, but I totally had a crush on Stormfront. I'm sorry, I did. So like season 1 was just like the intro, Huey's revenge, like Canary in Coal
Mhm.
Mine. Season 2 is all about fucking Stormfront. Season 3 is Soldier Boy. And now season 4 apparently is like Civil War, and I think the beginning of the end. Like that's
Yeah.
what this is
Yeah.
about.
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's exactly where we're going to end up is we're going to see. I think I almost think it has to end at the bleakest spot it can end,
Yes.
right? Because we have to be able to come back from that. Um, but yeah, I think we're going to see that light at the end of the tunnel as far as storytelling, not necessarily like happiness, but just see where things have to go. Um, but
And I gotta say,
no, go ahead, go ahead.
and I gotta say really quickly for the fellas, Victoria Newman, I forget her last name. It's like Duman, I want to say. Anyway, Victoria Newman, every time she comes on screen, I'm mesmerized. I'm like, you are beautiful. And like, please just keep showing up because I light up when you come on there. And the way you act, like you're just so cold and hilarious and your power is crazy. All right.
Yeah.
So I just had to say
But
something.
that's me with Karen Fukuhara. I'm just like
Oh, okay.
I'm like I love you. But yeah, no,
Claudia Dumit.
it's funny though because you said it's consistent and it was, but that was almost my problem with the beginning of season 4 is that it felt like everything kind of had ramped up and this one it and maybe it's my memory too. Like in my head, each season started out crazy. And this one didn't quite start out crazy. This started
Right.
out a little slow and then built up.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't bad. It was where it left off. But it was just like I was like, okay, I was waiting for that next, step up, which it has certainly done now. And I it's not a show that I recommend to everybody because if violence and over the top sex and all that stuff isn't your jam, like if you can't
And
deal with that,
lots of wang.
yeah,
Yo,
lots
the
of wiener.
cloning guy, like who could make copies of himself, I was like, there's just too much wang for this scene. And then when he got pink, sorry, from that human centipede,
Hmm.
like scene, like he's jacking off in the front and he's getting this like eaten out for the back. Yo. All right.
So
So yeah, you're right. The show is not for everybody.
yeah, it's really not. But for the people that can handle it doesn't seem like a show that you would describe as brilliant, but it's a brilliant show. Like it really is. It just you have to look beyond that surface layer of almost grotesquerie to get to the brilliance of the show.
Shenanigans for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I'm in. I'm waiting. I'm
Yeah.
gonna, I'm definitely watching episode 6 as soon as it comes out. I'm all caught up. And then it's on to the Bear for next week, and I should be back next week too.
Okay,
So
great.
I'm excited about that.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll definitely talk about the bear. I'm excited. Like I said, I'm really curious to see what you think of the beginning of it because it's different. It is the first episode is an art piece for sure. Like it is a very artfully done episode that almost doesn't need to exist. Um, but it's good. So, all right. Well, then the last thing that we've got is the Acolyte, which, to be fair, I think I said it when I started it. The first 2 episodes were kind of okay. I definitely was not on board with the whole like
8.
the hate. I will say that everything that I've seen that like people are like hating on like big time are things that I don't feel actually exist. People are saying that it's super woke and all this shit. I don't think that the witches, even if those two characters are lesbians, which is not confirmed, even by the creator of the show, who is a lesbian and would like out it if it was. But let's just say they were. You don't see them kiss. They're not in your face. They don't do anything like aggressively lesbian-y. Anybody that's getting pissed about this coven of witches is completely forgetting that they fucking loved the coven of witches in the Clone Wars with the Night Sisters, which is one of the biggest storylines, and it was in Ahsoka, and nobody complained. So, like that whole thing, I'm like, shut up. Just you're just being, crybabies. Um, basically every argument I've seen that is like ultra negative about the show, I just don't agree with. I do think there's problems with the show. I thought the first episode was kind of boring. I felt like the characters were a little flat in the beginning. Part of that was the main character, the main Jedi dude, who I didn't realize when I watched it, and now I respect the high holy shit out of, is he did
Young
not
Jed.
speak English at all
Mhm.
for this and learned English for the show. And I'm like, dude, that guy speaks better English than I do. So, I don't uh I have no problem with him whatsoever. Um and I think, yes, I think you said it. The reveal in episode 5 is predictable for sure. Like, I think it was predictable in the third episode.
Mhm.
Um, but I still like it.
It
Like
was
I
satisfying.
yeah. Number one, a part of that is because I love the actor. Like, I wanted him to be that guy. Um, and part of it was that it just kind of made sense for the story. So yes, it was predictable, but it did make sense. Another thing that I think is really interesting is everybody was bagging on the creator of the show because they were complaining that she's putting all these woke things into the show or whatever. But dude, she dove into lore for Star Wars to make this show happen. She knows her shit. Like, so there's the whole thing with the helmet and the guy's arm brace with the lightsabers. So do you catch that when the lightsabers hit his helmet or his arm brace, the lightsabers stop working?
Oh, no, I didn't catch that.
And that, I didn't even know about this. That is because those two things are made out of a metal called cortosis that is from the old, like what is now considered Legends, old Star Wars books. So this is something that already existed to a degree, that she knew about it because she actually knows and loves this stuff, wrote it in. The reason that it's not as popular as, say, the Beskar armor that the Mandalorians wear, that is, you know, lightsaber proof, and it's more fragile. So if you see his mask when he's not wearing it, there's a bunch of cracks. Like, he's welded it back together and all that, but it's obviously useful because that's why he kicks so much ass, is because he literally turned people's lightsabers off. Like, it was cool. And like, I liked episode 4. I know you said you didn't really totally jive with it until episode 5, which I get. Episode 5 was fucking dope. Like, that's when you got prime Star Wars. You had lightsaber battles and
I'm in.
murder and
I don't care about anybody. I mean, it's like all the criticism. Just to me, if your story and your whole if your story is dope, then I will forgive everything else, even the outside noise. My whole thing is I can't stand anything or anyone. I'm a dick, but that tries to pass off mediocrity as excellence. That to me is just I have no tolerance for it. Your shit is whack. Calm down. But if you come correct and you come with some like impressive shit, then all of a sudden I'll actually make allowances for you. And I'm consistent because I know I'm going to lose you here. I know that like James Cameron says some stupid ass shit, and I was impressed, by what I saw. Kanye West will say some stupid ass shit, but if your shit's dope, I'll be like, okay, you have a right to be a bit of a dick. So as far as Leslie Headland's concerned, I'm like, yo, I'm in. You won me over because like, and dude, like he was menacing. Like
mm-hmm.
as a Sith, he was like, yo, he's killing you. Like run. Like and the way he just Swiss cheesed Daphne Keene's character, and Daphne Keene's character is not a slouch. Like she was actually holding her own, but then he's like, like what? Like, and then he's buff, like he's actually like ripped and
Dude, he was kind of jacked.
he's jacked. Like so to me, it's like, no, you created a dope show and you've ramped it up. You ramped it up, and and it's funny, but you going back to the lesbian witches, whatever, right? I watched that episode and it was like, yeah, this isn't crazy. Like, stop it. Like it's just, they're women. They probably don't even have, who knows? But it's just like Coral, I think there's something up with her. Like I think that I don't know. I just think that there's something going on with that, because she was absolutely against letting them go, or letting Osha go. And she carried both of them. So I think for her, it was like, I carried them. Okay. So you don't get to make the call, but I do make the call because I'm Jodie Turner-Smith, who, by the way, I didn't realize it was her. That's great because she's cool. She was the one who was married to Joshua Jackson
Yep.
for a while.
Yep.
But and yeah, I'm sorry, I just went off on a rant. Dude, uh, everybody that I've been talking to about Acolyte, I just say to you, like, and maybe I'm mean, but I'm like, lower expectations. Just know that episodes 1 to 4 are just going to be okay. They do progressively get a little better,
Yep.
but then 5 is the one that goes, okay, yeah, I now have to finish the rest of the show. It's so funny. Wasn't X-Men 97? Was it episode 5 that was the big one for that one too?
Maybe I
I
have to
think
look at
so.
that. But there's
Yeah.
definitely, I saw something about how like recently it's been like episode fives across the board that are just like the game changers for shows. And I agree. I think this one definitely was, ramping up, and then this is,
And they weren't afraid. I mean, we lost, we're gonna be spoilery, right? Like
yeah,
we
oh yeah.
lost Yord and Daphne Keene. Like, and they were being set up as like these two, like, major characters. And he just gets his neck snapped. Like,
Oof.
yo,
And that's the thing, dude. Like
yo.
the kills in there were brutal. Like it wasn't like
Shish kebab.
when, yeah, with the force pull and he kills two of them. I was like, that's sick, dude. Like that's dope. Like this guy's bad. Like this guy's bad, bad. Like he's not, you know, even like if you watch episode 1, like Darth Maul's dope and all that, but he's not as like badass as this dude. Yes, he has one of the greatest fight scenes in all of Star Wars. Like I give you
Yes.
that for sure. Um, but like it's this guy is just crazy. Like he's
He
brutal
even
crazy.
survives the giant space moths. Like that's how you know he's badass. Like
Yeah.
he survived. Like it wasn't just one of them. He
No,
was
there's a
like
buttload of them.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
nah. Yeah, and like he was like, even though May killed Indara, who apparently is no slouch either, May is scared shitless of this Sith. And he's like,
Yeah.
you were gonna betray me. Like Al is worried for May. Like he's gonna
Yeah.
kill.
Yeah. She's like, no, 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 I didn't mean to. Blah, blah, blah. She's like, I'm sorry. And he's like, nah, bro, I'm gonna take your sister instead. Yeah, like it's going to be a trip. I know too that I wish I could remember who it was, but there's another actor, like a bigger named actor that was cast in the show that hasn't showed up yet. Is a black actor too, and like an impressive like a name, like he wasn't just cast as a side character, like he's supposed to show up at some point, and I can't remember who it is.
Huh.
Um, but he, like I said, he's gonna be a badass. And like people are like maybe he is like this guy's actual like Sith Lord, right? Because a lot of people feel like um that Manny Jacinto's character, the stranger, isn't like the big bad. Like maybe there's still another like level above him that we haven't seen yet.
Huh.
Uh, I wish I could remember who it was because I was like, oh yeah, if that guy's cast, he's like critically important. But I don't see who it was, so I can't say, which is
Yeah, well,
very
I
disappointing.
mean, obviously when you edit, you'll like throw it in.
If
So
I can find it, yeah, I'll definitely throw it in. I thought it was really interesting. I saw an interview with Daphne Keene where she was talking about, you know, being killed off, and she's like, yeah, it kind of sucks to have your character killed off, but she's like, I fucking love it. She's like, this showed that they were not afraid to kill anybody off, and I think the only reason that the Master Soul is still around, our main character is still around, is I think there and they hinted at it. There seems to be a relationship between him
yes.
and Kamir, that we're gonna have to see. And so I'm really curious to see where that goes.
Is it David Harewood? Is that?
Maybe,
Yeah,
maybe.
because he was in Homeland and
Oh,
he
David
played
Harewood's dope.
Martian
Yeah,
Man.
he's been all
Uh,
kinds of stuff.
yeah, maybe.
He's
There's
he's the
a
he's the Allstate guy with the super badass voice. Like he's got Sith voice already.
huh.
He's yeah.
So yeah, but I was gonna I forget. Yeah, I'm trying to find. Yeah, I remember. So when you were talking about the relationship between Saul and like he's like, how do you like teach a Padawan behind a mask or something? He goes like, you tell me. Like, so
Yeah.
that was like, oh, okay, all right, Saul. Like, so your whistle isn't clean. Like,
Yeah.
what's going on with you? You know,
I really think that those four Jedi that she was hunting
burned.
are
Oh,
the
yeah.
reason that the village burned. Maybe they didn't intentionally start it. Maybe something else was going on, but they're the reason that that village burned and they hit it. Like to me, one of the things about this story is that it seems to be really clearly pointing out the Jedi are not perfect, right? That they are in fact they're almost like colonizers. They came in, they took what they wanted from this village. Granted, they made it seem like they were doing it nicely. They're like, she doesn't have to come with us, but at the same time, they didn't have to walk into their house and say, "We want your fucking kid," right?
We're gonna
Like,
come back. We're gonna come back to this
yeah.
because like we were talking about it in the chat. Dennis Haysbert is the guy you're talking about for Allstate. Dorian Harewood is a different guy, but they both have DH names.
Oh,
So,
David
but
Harewood. Why do I know his name then?
he's
What'd you
been in
say he
other
was?
things.
Yeah.
He was in Homeland, and then he was Martian Manhunter and Hank Henshaw
Okay. Yes. 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 Okay. Yeah. I know exactly who he is. Yeah. I love him.
and Supergirl. Yeah, he was in
Yeah. Yeah.
Supergirl.
Supergirl. Yeah. Yeah.
So, but no, both DH names though. So
Yeah.
you get it totally no worry. But going back, yes, no. So, ladies and gentlemen of the podcast, so me and Kevin had this like as we do. It started back in the Disney days when I dissed Disney and he didn't like it. Anyway, so I was saying that the Jedi were just coming to like liberate Osha because she's a Disney princess. I'm joking, but she wanted a life beyond just being a space witch. And Kevin was like, "Well, damn it! Like they had no right walking up in their house and taking their kids, like being baby stealers, basically." And I was like, "But the babies wanted to go, or the baby wanted to go." So, I'm going to be delicate about this because again, I don't have any kids, so I don't, I feel like I shouldn't speak about what I don't know. But I will be sad if it is revealed that yes, Indara and the other three Jedi were in fact a bunch of baby raiders and destroyed a whole coven of witches just to get like some Jedi kids. Like that to me is evil, and that is probably why Darth Tyrannus apparently Dooku left because he's like y'all motherfuckers are corrupt, and I'm gonna be a Sith now, basically. Um, that'll be sad, but I think that Leslie Headland is telling a dark story, and maybe that's what's going to happen.
I just think about it as something like, and because the Jedi are effectively a religion, I think about it like something like the Crusades. Like
Yeah.
if the Crusaders are coming in and they come in to because this happened in the Middle East. If they come in and they're like, here's a Muslim family with two kids, and they're like, we like that 8-year-old more than that 8-year-old, we're gonna take them. Like that's not okay. Like it's just because they want to take. They are just coming in as conquerors and taking the things that they want and moving along. You just can't take somebody's kid is what it comes down to. Like, yes, maybe that child has potential, maybe, whatever. But even then, they were wrong. She didn't make it as a Jedi anyways. So if they went in and they burned this whole village and they did, even if they didn't burn the village, if they came in and said, we want your child, you should give us your child. Number one, that's like having the military literally walk in your door with their guns in their hips and saying, we want your kid. Can you say no? Or are they going to kill you anyways? Like you don't know. So it's, they didn't really have a choice but to let them tell their kid, sure, you can make a decision you're not old enough to make. Like they weren't even teenagers. Like you wouldn't let a 13-year-old vote, but you'd let them choose to go switch to this completely different thing that they know nothing about because it looks good on paper. Like that's how you get the David Koreshes and all those people of the world.
Yeah. I'm trying to do some like quick reading while we're on the podcast, and I couldn't find what I was looking for. I was trying to find out. There seemed to be something about like maybe they weren't supposed to have any kids on that planet or something. Like they're kind of like outside the law. Like they're just kind of like, hey, we're banished because we don't use the Force. We just like, I don't know, like they talked about how they have a different view of the Force than like say the
Oh,
Jedi's
for
do.
sure. For sure. Uh,
Um,
that was something that people were super pissed about because they all but said that they um, created the girls using the Force,
yeah.
right? And people were pissed about that. They're like, well, what does that do to Anakin Skywalker if these people can just create somebody with the Force? And people pointed out, they're like, yes, but this is people manipulating the Force to do this thing. Anakin was supposedly created solely by the Force to bring balance. It wasn't somebody, willing him into existence. He wasn't created by an individual. This was the universe creating him to try and bring balance back. So there's your difference in those two things. So it shouldn't be as big of a debate as it was because they literally somebody was doing it. Somebody was creating him rather than or creating the girls rather than it being kind of divine intervention.
Did they talk about how like the Jedi even knew the kids were on the planet?
I
Was
don't
that
think so.
revealed?
I don't think
Yeah.
so. So I mean, there's a lot of questionable stuff about the Jedi in this one that I like. I like the idea that you take this thing that we've all taken to be so pure,
Heroic.
but because it's so big, right? Because it's so huge, there's at least going to be some corruption in there, or just thinking that you're so big and so right that everything you do is right when it's not.
Couple things. So I remember being annoyed at Mother Anastasia. God love the internet because now I can actually refer to their names. Because Coral was like, hey, don't eat the sweets or whatever. And Mother Anastasia is like, hey, they can have all the sweets they want or whatever. And I'm like, that's not cool. Like, dude, like you feel me? Like, I don't have any kids, but if I was parenting kids with a partner, I would not undermine my partner in front of the kids. What are you doing? So to me, that was annoying. And then yeah, I still feel for the child. Like I feel bad for kids who like, and not even from like an entitled bratty way, but more of like, yo, I don't know if I want to be like, you know, confirmed as like a space witch. And then May's like, what are you saying? Heresy. Didn't May say something like I'll burn you or something? Like I forgot that too because again, full transparency. Also for the audience, like Kevin made me watch the show. I wasn't gonna watch it. I was like, no, I want to watch The Bear. Kevin's like, no, you have the show. So I'm like, fine. So I do what I never do, which is I watch it while doing other things. This is a first. So I'm like on my phone, just looking up every now and then, like while the show is going on. But let me tell you, five, yeah, no, I was like this.
Yeah.
Actually, even at the end of episode four, it leads
Yeah.
into five. So
Yep.
by the end of episode four and the sabers come out, I'm like, oh shit. Anyway, so the whole, I think, yeah, episode four is the one that explains the whole backstory of May and Osha when they're kids. And I think May just has this like temper tantrum, locks Osha in a room, and then all of a sudden there's a fire, and then of course all the bad things happen. And I felt like, was May trying to kill Osha? That was kind of the impression I got. Can you tell me, like, did I miss that? Like, did May go psycho on Osha
Well, that's what's implied. It's implied that she started the fire
to kill
uh
May? I mean, to kill
well,
Osha, rather.
to kill everybody. Like I don't know. Like that's the thing. But when you get down there,
There's way too many people.
everybody's dead.
Yeah.
Like the only way that could happen is if somebody actively like killed them because they're not simple people. This wasn't like a farmstead where they went in and just whacked a bunch of farmers. These people have powers. They can do shit. And so like how what was powerful enough to kill them all? The Jedi. You know, the only other thing, like I'm remembering, other thing that I don't know if it bothered me necessarily, but I didn't love it, was the singing for the ceremony. When the girls were being promoted or whatever you want to call it. Um, I don't remember why I didn't like it. It wasn't that they were doing it. It was just something about like the chant almost felt corny, I think is what it was. Like that was
It's
one of
coming
those
back to
things
me
that
now.
felt that was one of those things that felt underproduced to me, where, some other things worked really well. Like I said, in the first episode, a lot of the characters just felt kind of flat and boring and I didn't care about them.
Hmm.
I wish I wish that they had spent a little more time building up Yord so that when he eventually, gets his head spun around, uh like that should break your heart. Like that should hurt more than it did. And I think the only reason it hurt, half of the people out there is because he looked great without a shirt on in episode one. I think Daphne Keene's character, Jackie is her name. I think she hits a little more
At
because
its
she's
name?
what's that? Yeah,
Was
it's
that its
name.
name?
Yeah. Uh like she's a little sweeter, she's a little more endearing. Like, you kind of really like her character. She has moments with Osha
Oh,
where
okay.
you know, where they're bonding a little bit, or they have these moments.
Like siblings.
Yeah, and so you like her character more than Yord.
Sure.
Um and that's why, or like her death sucked too, because you're just like, damn, because she put up a hell of a fight and she still lost. So it's yeah, it was good. And I think, like you said, that the end of episode 4 leads to episode 5, like that ending sucked because you're like, I need to know what's next. Because all the Jedi charge and he just goes, and they all go flying backwards. And that was like what, 6 or 8 of them. And you're
Yeah.
just like, oh shit, this guy's
Yeah.
not to
This
be screwed
guy's
with. Yeah.
Yes. One thing I will say as well, though, is just from an inclusion standpoint, this is not woke, this is inclusion, and there's a difference.
Yes.
Is I know, and I didn't grow up with sisters, so I can only like just speak of this kind of from, whatever. But there was a braiding hair scene, and that I know that for Black women everywhere, like if you're braiding your hair, it's kind of a ritualistic thing, So when they're both getting their hair braided while they're talking, that's something you don't really see anywhere, but because it's very, unique to Black hair. So I thought that was kind of like cool seeing that just woven into the show naturally. I'm like, wow, you don't really see that. Like, I mean, you see it if it's like, a quote unquote Black show or movie, but you don't see that in like a general market film or TV show. So I thought that was actually pretty inclusive. So I want to call that out. So APSC, all pop some culture.
Yeah.
We get props for recognizing that. I want to just say that.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, the spread of cultures in this cast is impressive. Like Daphne Keene's, she's some kind of Latina. Is she Spanish? Like, is she
I'll have
actually
to look it up.
Spanish? Um, and then obviously you've got, a Lee Jung Jae who's
Korean.
Korean. Jodie Turner Smith is
Jamaican,
stunningly
actually.
black. Like it's
Mhm.
like
Stunningly Black, hilarious.
she's beautiful. Like
You're right,
what's
Spanish.
his yeah, what's his name has a type. Josh uh
Oh yes, yes. Joshua Jackson
yeah,
definitely.
Jodie Turner and
Yes,
Lupita
yes,
Nyong'o. I was like, oh, so you like the like impressively beautiful black women.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Like,
good for
yeah.
him. Oh,
And good for him landing both of those, because
yeah.
that's a hell of a
We'll probably have
uh
beautiful kids if they go that route.
yeah, if they
So
go that route. But yeah, is it a perfect show? No, but like where it's at now, I enjoy it more than Boba Fett. Uh, I enjoyed it. I'm starting to enjoy it now, probably more than I did the last season of The Mandalorian.
I never
Um,
even saw it. honestly.
And so, and I like The Mandalorian a lot, so I'm not putting that down at all. I just think this is going in an interesting direction that we've never seen before.
What they finally figured out is an interesting villain. That's what they figured
Yes.
out. I don't know if any of the other shows, I mean, besides Andor, have had an interesting villain. And Andor, I think, has two interesting villains. And that, of course, is, Blonde Ice Queen and the original Paul Atreides, like
Mhm.
clone. They're cool. I want to see where they go.
Yeah.
But nah, this I keep bringing his name, but like this, I mean, as in the show.
Yeah.
But
Kimir.
is it Kimir, you said?
Yeah. Or the stranger. Yeah.
The stranger. I'll call him the stranger. But
Yeah.
come here, the stranger. Like he, and you called it as well. About the Kylo Ren music, but he was just like, because Ren to me, in episodes 1 and 2, in episodes 7 and 8, was he was a formidable character, and I like the fact that he was this explosive, angsty, just kill your patricidal guy. But this guy is even, I think, he's smarter, he's more ruthless, and a
But
better fighter
but
than I think Kylo
he's
Ren.
not rage oriented. That's a thing
No,
too.
he's calculating.
And when he faces off with Soul and he says, he's like, you would call me a Sith. He actually doesn't call himself a Sith. Says,
Yes.
you would call me a Sith. He's like, all I want to do, I just want to go. I want to have an acolyte and I want to do whatever the fuck I want with the Force. He's like, that's all I want. He's like, if you guys would just let me go, everything would be fine.
Yeah.
And so there's this interesting thing there too, where like, if they didn't fight him, they'd all be alive. Like they came after him because they didn't like what he's doing. But he's got this girl, assassinating Jedi. But maybe
But
there's actually a good reason for it. Like,
exactly. It's like, so stop, like just leave her alone, let her go about her way with her darts.
yeah,
And what is it? And it's like you can't kill them with a lightsaber or something. I know there's some rule she has to follow. Yeah. She
yeah.
can't
Can't
kill the
kill him with
weapon.
a weapon, I think is just all it
Yeah.
said. Which is funny because he actually gave her the poison to
Yeah.
kill the one. Um, but yeah, I think he was just trying to push her, just trying to see, how
I
far
need
you can
to
go.
go back and watch Floating Man again. Because I remember she said something where he just comes out of the trance and is like, okay, I'll drink it. And he drinks it and kills himself. So now I want to go back and see if what she said to him gives us any clues
It
about what
was,
happened.
I think it was something about just guilt. Like
Yeah.
she's like, I know what you did, and I think that's was the gist of it. But
You
I
know
kind
what?
of do want to watch the rest of the show again.
I want to watch 1 to 5. I literally I got to go back now and see if there's any more clues. So well done again. Like, and again, it's almost like a cliche, but like, I didn't hate the show. I was just turned off by all the negativity around it. And I just, and yeah, like Leslie seemed a little, but,
You let the
but
haters win.
I was, I was, I was willing to let the haters win until fucking Kevin just said, nope, drag me back in, AI
Sit the fuck
motherfucker,
down and watch the
and
show.
watch the show.
Oh,
And
that was funny though. Like I didn't even know what I was going to get out of
yes,
that, but um like so nobody knows what we're talking about. When we were talking about the review bombing of the show, uh I basically said, "Well, here, let me give you a positive review of the show that is very detailed and
you
blah blah."
started
And
with a
I
negative,
and I
actually.
went, yeah, I started with the negative with the Chat GPT, and I basically said, "Give me a negative review of episode 4 of The Acolyte," and it was long, like it was not a short review. And if I can find it, maybe I'll copy and paste it and show it. But like it was not insignificant, and it felt detailed, and it wasn't. If you actually read it, it's not detailed at all, but it felt detailed. So if you go to read it, it looks concise and it's like blah blah blah. And then I said, "Well, watch this." And I did a positive one, same, almost the same format and everything, but instead it's like it was brilliant, blah blah blah. I love how they did this, and it took the exact same things that said were bad and made them good, and like you can come out with a positive review or a negative review and a lengthy review in seconds. And
Seconds.
if you know how to create fake accounts and spin them up, you can create negative reviews, hundreds of negative reviews. If you're a super crazy angry person, you can come up with a lot of negative reviews in a very little amount of time.
Yeah, and there's people out there who are absolutely about that life.
Mhm.
I mean, again, this is how we know how crazy fandom can go. When at the Oscars, the scene from the Flash, no, from Justice League, from the Snyder cut, where the Flash like reverses time, that was like the greatest theater scene like of like I want to say 2022,
Yeah,
I want to say,
yeah,
like, or 2023, Oscar 2023. And I was like, how did that beat like Endgame? Like, right?
yeah,
But like,
yeah,
or not, whatever, or either way, we knew it was rigged,
yeah,
and they never did that again.
yeah.
Like, that's crazy. But yeah, no, all I'll say is the show was to me extremely mediocre until five, and now I'm gonna go back and watch one to four again, and hopefully it finishes strong because I
Yeah.
think now you've brought something new. And again, I'll go back. Every great story needs a fantastic villain, and that's why The Dark Knight is like held up as like a masterful film. That's why hell, even the Infinity Saga is great because Thanos was the shit.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, Killmonger was
Oh
compelling.
yeah.
You need that.
Yeah, I think too. I know that Leslie
Vader,
Headland. Which one?
Like
Oh
Vader
yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
you are what made the original trilogy.
Oh yeah, for sure. Leslie Headland has said that season one has a definitive ending. So she's knows what she would do if she gets more seasons,
Okay,
but if she doesn't, said the ending should be, good. Like they know where they're going with it, which I like. I kind of like the idea of creating your story and knowing that if you have to walk away from it, that the things that you need answered are answered. Like like with Dark Matter. Would a second season be awesome? Like, are there things they could do? Sure. Do you need it? Absolutely not. And so as long as they tell their story and finish the story, because I feel like, and I would be proven wrong, but it feels like the point of this really is that the Jedi aren't perfect. And
perfect.
like we need to understand that and get that through our heads because, growing up, we had Obi-Wan Kenobi and Yoda and then Luke. And Luke wasn't perfect, but you kind of looked beyond that because he was like the hero of the story. But like he had anchor issues, he had problems, like he wasn't perfect, he made mistakes. But you looked at Obi-Wan Kenobi and you're like, he must have been, you know, perfect, and then you look at
Qui-Gon.
Yoda and he must have been perfect. Yeah, and then when we watched the sequels when we were older, yeah, you had Qui-Gon. But even then, they kind of set up that the Jedi Council was kind of a bunch of arrogant dickheads at that point. Like they're like, no, we can't possibly do that. We can't do that thing. Years of tradition, whatever. And this is before this is setting up those traditions. So it's definitely
100 years
interesting.
prior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So good job. Yeah, I'm, I would love to be proven wrong in a good way. And I wouldn't say I was necessarily hating the show. I just wasn't like he said, I wasn't gonna watch it. But um, yo, that was some good shit.
yeah, I just think what they did in episode 5 was draw everybody in with something that actually was very minimal storytelling wise. Like they dropped some seeds in there for sure, but this episode was all about action, and it it instantly was everybody's favorite episode of the series. Like everybody, you had crazy action, you had everything that you could possibly want from it, and then you have the reveal. You find out this dude is somebody that you've already seen, which makes it cool. Even if you predicted it, it's still cool. He's a fucking murder machine. Like it's good. It like it changes kind of the course of the whole show.
Cool.
So yeah, like you said, it's hard to recommend the show up until through season three, or sorry, episode three at least. Like
Yeah.
it plods along and whatever. By the end of season four, you're like, okay, this is, I'm ready. Season five is like, that's your cake and your ice cream right there. You're like, this is the shit. So wherever it goes, it just has to go there well, and finish strong. And I think it'll be really good. I think you have a compelling villain. He's doing villainy things, and we've switched our primary protagonists' locations. So the bad girls with the Jedi and the good girls with the bad guy. So it'll be interesting to see how that develops too.
Amen. One last superficial thing I'll say is I just love the way um the sabers glowed in the dark. Like I loved the way Saul's blue saber just shone. Like I just the first time I saw that, of course, was Obi-Wan. I mean Kenobi, like same thing. But there's just something about the fight in the woods. Like it took like the fight in the Force Awakens in the woods. Same thing. Like in the woods, sabers, even the spinning saber like being thrown and chopping out all those trees. Sorry, I'm just
That's
I'm
taken from video games. That's
I've
taken
heard
from the
that.
recent Star Wars video games. That and actually how bright the sabers are. Because in Star Wars, what is it? One of the two recent ones. Um, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. When you go into caves, it's dark. You hold up your lightsaber and you use that
I
as your
see.
light to guide yourself through the
I,
cave. So like some you know normally intelligent person that just happened to notice something was like, hey, those are fucking bright. They could be brighter. You know, and so that you get a purpose out of them. So yeah, it's cool. Like it's like I said, she's getting Leslie Headland took a lot of crap because she was a lesbian woman in charge of a show, and a lot of people were like, I don't like that, so I hate this show. Um, but she knows her shit, or at least she's like, and it's not a fair comparison, but like Kevin Feige, you
yes.
surround yourself with the people that know more than you. And
Yes.
granted, I do think Kevin Feige knows fucking a
Oh yeah.
shitload. And I think Leslie Henlon, for what she did, she must have known a lot of this stuff,
Yeah.
but she also probably didn't know everything and knew how to work with the people around her to develop that story with these other pieces. And I think that's really great.
Do you know she actually like she handpicked the Saul actor? It says here, Leslie Headland wanted him for the character based on his performance in Squid Game, feeling the two characters were very different. But she just basically saw him in that and said, I want you for this, which is amazing. And then he did say he took inspiration from previous masters, particularly
Qui-Gon,
Qui.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hope, um like, I hope it finishes strong. I hope that people will kind of ease off on her. And
It will.
if
It should.
this finishes where it should and finishes well, like, I hope this is the start of a great career for her, because I think she
Yeah.
did some smart stuff.
She
Even
deserves
if
it.
it's not Star Wars, even if it's not something else, I think she at least proved that if you love the thing you're working on, you can do something with it and respect things that came before. And on top of that, like, things that people were disappointed that got taken away from them, she brought back. Because Legends isn't really Star Wars, right? Like Legends, but for a lot of people, like, I know Pete read a bunch of the books. Like, people read and feasted on those books for decades, because we didn't even have the prequels. And then when we had the prequels, we didn't have the sequels. Like, there's all this time in between where people just had books. And then when Disney took over, they were like, yeah, that shit's all gone. We're not dealing with that crap. And there were a lot of people that were super pissed about it, and rightfully so. But also those books were tricky because they were written by individuals with nobody overseeing them. Stories were all over the place. So Disney had to if they were going to keep this brand going and do something, they had to clean it up somehow. It was an unfortunate way to do it, but they kind of didn't have a lot of choice. And so now to see things being brought back is really cool. So yeah, I don't have anything else. I think we put a lot of time into just three subjects, but I enjoyed all three discussions. I think hopefully everybody enjoys them. So to take away, go watch Dark Matter, go watch The Boys, sack up and watch The Acolyte. It finishes for where we're at now. It finished very strong in episode 5, and you know, go watch some good stuff. And next week we'll probably talk about The Bear. House of the Dragon only has 2 episodes so far, so if you watch by next week, there'll be the 3rd one. So we can talk about that, and then whatever else comes. I know I'll probably have Godzilla X Kong, I guess is the way you say it. That drops on HBO Max on July 4th. So I'll be watching that with my kids.
I will too.
And you're gonna watch it with my kids? But yeah, so we'll hopefully we'll have that. Yeah, and so we'll have some good stuff for next week. So then I can't speak. So with that, I will say thank you everybody for watching. Thank you for listening. I promise to upload the audio. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.